final masterclass, I'm pleased to be joined by Rebecca Clark, our Inspiring Automotive Woman of the Year 2020 and Sales Director of Auto Trader, Paula Cooper, our Inspiring Automotive Woman of the Year 2019 and Director of Consumer One at Toyota GB, and Fiona Daniel, award-winning founder and CEO of diversity and inclusion consultancy FD2I. Welcome to you all. So the subject of this discussion is promoting and retaining women. Fiona, Paula and Rebecca will share their perspectives and experiences, and then I'll ask them some questions about the issue. But first, I'll start by setting the context about promoting and retaining women. So in order to ensure your gender balance improves in the higher levels, it all boils down to making sure you promote proportionally. If more men are being promoted than women, then you have a problem somewhere in your recruitment processes or promotion criteria. We know that getting to the first rung of the management ladder is critical for women to progress, so it's essential that women don't leak from the pipeline at that stage. To ensure you promote proportionately to top levels, you must ensure that you have a large enough representation of women in the key roles on the management ladder that are the stepping stones to executive and board roles. I'll run through some actions that can address this. Ensuring men and women can work flexibly, irrespective of seniority, will have a huge impact on the number of women who are able to progress through the company. And if men also work remotely and flexibly, it won't be seen as a woman's issue. Inclusive leaders must set a good example by adopting contemporary working patterns themselves and encouraging others to do the same. Succession planning is critical. To build inclusive teams of complementary skills, it's essential to plan the moves of employees in advance of vacancies arising. It's a good practice that forces senior executives to get to know the strengths of direct reports and those at least a level below that, and it avoids incorrect assumptions being made about women's career ambitions. To be able to identify who will fit best where, establish formal sponsoring programs involving the top team, and structures like personnel development committees to identify career pathways for each individual. Many women think they need mentoring when actually they need a sponsor, so tend to be over-mentored and under-sponsored, with the reverse happening for men. With women, the relationship is based on the mentor helping to develop their skills. Yet men often have more senior mentors who are less likely to coach them on their weaknesses, and more likely to be an advocate in networks and make connections for them, and thus are actually acting as an unofficial sponsor. This leads to a more successful outcome for the man than the woman. Now, the most common reason cited to me by leaders as to why they have a gender imbalance is that women don't apply for promotions. Coming into play, no doubt, is the phenomenon revealed by the Hewlett-Packard study that men will apply for a role when they meet 60% of the criteria, whereas women will only apply when they meet all of them. This can be tackled by simply asking women to apply when you know that they meet enough criteria. Coaching and leadership programs must be inclusive. Leadership training is primarily designed around stereotypically male attributes, and what's needed now, though, is training for everyone that also champions more stereotypically female attributes. Coaching programs tailored to the needs of the specific groups are ultimately the most successful, and also combining leadership training with mentoring leads to better outcomes. Networks for women can be extremely useful if they have a defined purpose. They broadly fall into two categories: networks founded by women as a way of connecting and supporting each other, or networks that are established as a business policy that are inclusive to all and have the purpose of providing suggestions and feedback as to what organisational changes would be beneficial to achieve a gender balance. Both purposes are valid, but the first can flounder if they also wish to influence company policy because there's no one in a position of power in there to listen to them. There's strong evidence that women's networks and conferences with the goal of inspiring, developing and supporting women have a significant positive impact on women's progression. It's because women tend to learn better in a female environment, as well as meet many female role models whose career path they can aspire to. Having invested considerable resources in recruiting and promoting women, make sure you don't lose them before you get the return on that investment. If the data shows a disproportionate number of female or ethnic minority employers are leaving, then there's a problem. A 2015 PwC report on female millennials found that the key reasons that women left their jobs were related to pay, development, and progression. There's dissonance here because employers say there aren't enough available women for promotion, yet women say there aren't enough opportunities to progress. So, are women being overlooked for promotion? Have they been put in the career slow lane because they need flexible working patterns? Or is there a perception by the women that they will not be paid fairly for the extra responsibility? Women are often made to prove it again and do sideways moves because recruiters want to see more evidence of competence than they do from their male peers. Due to a lack of female role models at senior levels, there's an assumption that a man will be able to step up, but a woman is a higher risk. You must check this isn't happening in your companies. Women may also leave organisations due to being sidelined after maternity. It's what's known as the motherhood penalty. This is caused by the woman taking more parental leave than the man, a decision that's often enforced by the differing levels of pay and leave available to mothers versus fathers. Examine your parental maternity and paternity leave to ensure men and women can both fulfil their career and carer potential, and make sure part-time employees have the same promotional opportunities. Women want to be paid what they believe their efforts are worth and expect to be paid the same as men. Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen and can be a reason for them leaving. You must aim to reduce your gender pay gap, and pay transparency is essential for trust and to prove equity and equality. Another reason that women may leave that doesn't show up on workplace surveys is sexual harassment. A BBC Radio 5 Live poll in 2017 found that more than half of women had experienced sexual harassment at work, and 10% of these women said they'd been sexually assaulted. Young women, disabled people, or members of sexual minority groups are more likely to suffer, along with workers in precarious employment contracts. These people are viewed as weaker, with less power, and less likely to be listened to or valued by the business over the perpetrator. If young women or minority groups are leaving a particular area of your organisation, this could be why. You must have a zero tolerance policy. So by examining why women leave, and specifically where from, and addressing those factors in your organisation, you're more likely to retain talented women. So those are just a few of the challenges to address and possible solutions. And in a few minutes, we're going to hear from Paula and Rebecca. But first, I'm going to hand over to Fiona, who will outline her views on how to ensure we promote and retain women. So over to you, Fiona.
Thank you very much, Julia. And a really great outline there of some of those key solutions. And I'm just going to add a little bit more flavour onto some of the things that you've mentioned already, Julia. So considering how diverse we are, I think the dominant profile of a leader is still the white, male, straight and able-bodied individual. And the challenge is that this is still predominantly seen as the figurehead of leadership. And let's face it, the fact that people who are making decisions about people are these profiles. So if we're making decisions around women of different diverse backgrounds, we've got a challenge there. So there's something that you mentioned as well around women not going for roles simply because they either don't see the opportunity, because of progression and development, etc. I think there's another dimension as well that you've also touched upon around ethnicity and women who identify across different intersects of difference. Is that if these women still are looking up and they don't see themselves in that group, then another dimension to think about is that if I don't see myself, if women don't see themselves there, then why would I apply? Because the culture is already telling me that actually you're not wanted here. So we are still really perpetuating this dominant profile. So we need to also think about some of the explicit the subconscious and the unconscious messages that we are sending outwardly to our culture and to our in our culture rather, and to the people that are receiving them. So let's just expand a little bit more on some of the things that we can do that again complement some of the things that you've mentioned. It really needs a holistic approach. It can't just be a one size fits all. We can't just say, let's just look at unconscious bias, the end. It has to be much more broad than that. We have to look at unconscious bias, but we also need to look at unconscious bias as it starts to shift into inclusive leadership. And we need to focus on those behaviors, the nitty gritty, the blockers, all those different aspects that really, I suppose, impact these people decision makers who are making decisions about other people. As we then move to that whole inclusive leadership behaviours, and again, you touched on this, Julia, and this is so, so important. For me, it's probably one of the biggest inhibitors because a lot of diversity and inclusion agendas don't look at this as broadly. And that's a systemic approach. That's really getting to roots and understanding those blockers, those biases as they pertain to the processes, particularly around talent, particularly around succession, particularly around promotion. Who's making those decisions? We know, we've discussed, or just now. What are the processes saying? What are we looking for? What does talent look like? What does leadership look like? What is the profile that we have in mind when we put all these things together? Who is it knocking out? Who is it favouring? Is it favouring the same old, same old? Is this approach really relevant for the organisation today? And I think it's those types of challenges, those types of questions that we really need to be focused on in helping to dismantle some of these processes, some of these systems that we have, and really start to check what we have, challenge what we have, and change them. Demonstrate that we are leading this change to action that results in fairer processes around promotion and talent. Are we still using talent processes that are still placing people in boxes and not telling people that they're even there, how to get out of one box to move to another aspect, how to promote, how clear and open are we actually being? So I think these some really good things, actions that we can take and really be mindful of. The other key thing is to talk to your women. Find out what is happening, what's working for them, what isn't working. And that includes conversations with all women, women that are non white, women that are parents, women that are of colour, women of different sexual orientation, women with disabilities, carers. We only need to look at a lot of the research, the findings around the impact of COVID on women, the caregiving responsibilities that are increasing, the impact that this has on them being able to really progress their careers, but how mindful are these decision makers of all of these things? Having those conversations will really bring to light what those barriers are and really help to drive relevant solutions. The last one for me, I think, is a bit of an obvious one. And it sounds really silly when I say it, but it's about including women. It's, we often make the assumption that, well, these women know, they know, these opportunities are out there. When I'm looking at my succession plan, when I'm looking at how I'm promoting, who I'm promoting, I will just assume that they're there, but actually don't assume, include them, be proactive. Ask yourself those questions. Who am I not including? Who is not here? When we're looking at all of these key things, where are they? And most importantly, don't fall in the trap that gender is just one aspect of difference. Don't forget about intersectionality. I see it time and time again where we do great things, great programs, great initiatives. And I walk into the room and I'm looking around the room and I'm saying, where's the women that look like me? Don't see it at all that often. So I think for me, it's about that whole inclusion piece. to make sure that we are including women. We're really understanding those drivers that are acting as inhibitors, but are also acting as enablers. It's not all gloom and doom. The other thing I would just add is around retention. We often have organisations that will say, "Yeah, we understand why people are leaving." Do you? Because often the realities are, to some of your points, Julia, is that these real stories don't come out. There's a fear factor. I don't want to be leaving to be seen as causing trouble. I don't want to be saying what has really happened. So really get to understand why people are leaving. Utilize the people that you have in your organizations, again, women from different backgrounds, and ask them this question: what will make you stay? So I will end there and get some other voices in as well. But yeah, they're the kind of hot tips that from my own experience and just general practitioner that work and could work really well.
Great, thank you very much, Fiona. And really important point about please do talk to the women in your organisation instead of trying to guess what they would like or why they might want to leave. So thanks very much. So let's move on now to Paula. Could you now share your thoughts with us?
So thank you, Julia, and some great content there from Fiona, some great things to think about too. So where to begin? I think this started a while ago for us when we looked at ourselves, the environment we work in, and the many factors that influence our performance, opportunity, and challenges, and the changes we could see impacting our industry. So we developed with our people a collective ambition, which could be developed through an engaged and passionate team. We weren't in a bad or weak position necessarily, but we recognized that if we didn't adjust in a number of ways, then we would be facing difficulties in our performance, achievements. And a keystone to this was to ensure that we were attracting the best of people from the widest of pools. So the focus at Toyota GB is about providing the opportunity for each person to be the best that they can be and to create the right environment for everyone to succeed. One of the first things we did was to make sure we removed any factors that may make roles less attractive to women, such as the tone or messaging, and review whether our actions might actually detract from people applying, and also consider when and where we were placing our vacancies. This applies to both external and internal candidates. From an external perspective, as an example, we have adjusted our adverts to be overt about a desire to discuss and embrace flexibility. Another example is we reviewed all our job profiles to ensure there isn't a long list of essential criteria. So that's not to dumb things down, but because experience and research has shown that this is quite often off-putting for those who believe that they need to meet all the criteria. And this is often women. In addition, we include how a role will develop the applicant and provide clear areas of ownership. And this produced some really great feedback, actually, and has been particularly liked by women considering applying. So retention of good people has been a key area of focus for us. And we have established what I hope is a clear framework to discuss our talent at all levels in the business. We run talent committees where we bring managers in the business together, and we talk about our key talent at all levels of seniority to all levels of management and executives, maximizing awareness of future talent. We also use this as an opportunity to get buy-in to create development opportunities, such as project work across teams. So in terms of developing our talent, we offer mentoring support through participation, obviously in the 30% Club. We have a cross-company mentoring scheme, and we have 20 accredited internal coaches who work in the business supporting a number of coaching briefs. For example, new starters, new promotions to ensure that these people land effectively, supporting a development issue that may be holding someone back, plus career planning and maternity returners. At a career level, Toyota held its first pan-European women's conference last year and saw a gathering of 200 people across the Toyota organization who came together to be inspired by each other's achievements, also learning from others outside of the industry and establishing actually a very public commitment from senior executives about a more open and diverse approach to people development. In the UK, we have what we call a Women on the Verge programme, which has now been attended by over 50 women. And this has been key in helping women focus on owning and changing the conversation about themselves. So identifying what they want to be and believing that they can be it. It's not necessarily about needing to be more assertive or vocal or more masculine, but more about being confident in who they are and how to optimize their impact without being someone completely different. We know that participation on this program has led women to apply for roles and undertake development that they previously didn't think possible. So it's about getting each woman to identify and appreciate their own talent and abilities, articulate them, and be more comfortable about owning them. And it's also created some great networks within the business where participants continue to meet, talk, and support each other's own development. Recently, we've introduced some internal seminars, this time partnering with our financial services arm of the business. And this actually allows us to broaden the conversation across the Toyota Group and further encourage collaboration and also raise awareness of opportunities across the Toyota companies. Some of the topics are familiar from the previous 30% events, such as imposter syndrome, plus things like managing boundaries and work-life balance, and hints and tips for finding a smooth response for tricky moments, trying to support women in being self-assured or have a dignified assertiveness. I have to say this is something that actually I would have really welcomed in my early days. So I hope we are doing many of the right things, making ourselves more attractive and appealing to a different profile of people who would not previously have considered automotive or Toyota, encouraging development and stretch, and supporting mentoring or coaching, but perhaps more importantly, by having an open and transparent approach to development and promotion opportunities. And finally, by being really ready to recognise and nurture talent.
Thanks, Paula. That's such some great activities and actions taking place in Toyota, and I'm sure that you're already reaping positive results from those. So thanks for sharing that, Paula. And so now let's finally turn to Rebecca to share your views, please, Rebecca.
Thank you, Julia. And once again, yeah, it's really inspiring just listening to other great examples of things that are happening in other businesses. I guess from an auto trader perspective, it's worth mentioning first and foremost that taking action to promote and retain women is something that we take really seriously, and we're blessed that is very much supported from our CEO and COO downwards, as well as across all different levels within the organisation. As it was just mentioned about supporting people in terms of being the best they can be, that they're absolutely things that we would champion, and allowing people and encouraging people very much to be their true selves at work is something that's at the heart of our culture. I think in terms of some of the things, in terms of actions that we've taken, everybody within Auto Trader is encouraged and supported to have an active personal development program that's very much supported by their line manager. I think certainly in recent times, and certainly throughout 2020 and some of our check-in surveys, some of our colleagues were expressing more concern about not being able to progress some of their perhaps career ambitions because of COVID, and wondering whether restrictions were going to be there. And we put a lot of emphasis in trying to just refocus, reset where it may be appropriate, but just really supporting people so that they felt that their personal development wasn't stifled last year in any way, shape or form. We introduced in October, not that it's just about 1 month, but a learning at work week where we tried to really focus and concentrate on people's personal development, and run individual sessions, and obviously managers talking with their people all of the time to update the plans. We support people. Often we find, as has been mentioned before, women typically struggle more from a confidence perspective. When we recognise, it would be beneficial to hold specific events, we do so. So, recently we've given opportunities for people to be more comfortable in speaking. Webinars and events such as what we're in now have obviously become, the mainstay of how we're working today. So trying to support women to be more actively involved in those areas when they're keen to do so. And actually, equally, when we know they're keen to do so, but they might not have that confidence to do so, we're really encouraging them and just helping them move through in the direction that they want to move in. So that's been something great within recent times as well, that we've put more emphasis on. Again, as was mentioned, around mentorship and being a mentee, we've created a culture of coaching and mentoring. We've trained coaches and mentors, from across the business at different levels, to be able to support women, obviously, and men as well, but really to be there for women. And, we do see many women taking up that opportunity to be a mentee or indeed a mentor. Everybody has the opportunity to request a coach or a mentor, and the people team very carefully, match people together so that we try to make sure, we're doing the best that we can by everybody that wants to get involved. From a training and development perspective, we've run a variety of programs for many years, again, as people have mentioned, like leadership development programs that really encourage women to progress in their careers and perhaps think about things that in the depth that maybe they hadn't in the past. Right now, we're excited that we're just about to start a new diverse talent accelerator program that we just literally launched before Christmas, and gone through a really good process to make sure that we're supporting people on that program. It's very much designed to support mid-career colleagues, to progress their careers within Auto Trader. And delighted to say, having just gone through that process, 70% of those participants are indeed women. We're also in the process currently of designing an inclusive leadership program. It's almost at the end stages. It's about to be rolled out, and all of our people leaders, just over 200 senior people within Auto Trader will go through the inclusive leadership program, and that's to give them the tools, for us to learn from each other on how we can all play our part in very much maintaining and building an inclusive culture at Auto Trader, which definitely, without doubt, is designed to retain our women colleagues. We have a women's network, very similar to others. It's a support network which prompts areas that need further discussion in our business and for our people. We work with different charities and community groups to educate and raise awareness on various issues affecting women at work. We're not afraid, I guess, to talk about some of those subjects that are, without doubt, more delicate subjects. Mental health, sexual harassment, menopause, and we just want to create that environment where women feel supported no matter what the challenges that they may face inside or indeed outside of work. And the Women's Network is, extremely well established. It's our longest serving network within Auto Trader. But equally, we have our BAME, LGBTQ+ and disability networks. And what we're really trying to do as well is bring those together so they're not operating in silos, that it is very, very cohesive, to the intersectionality point that Fiona mentioned before. And I guess just lastly, it's thinking about people's personal circumstances. We are all individual human beings, and taking the time, as you mentioned, Julie, to talk to our people. this feels kind of really at our core, really wanting to understand each other, want to support each other. We recognise, again, now more than ever, you talk about flexibility. If people need time for homeschooling, gosh, that's so prevalent. Time with children, pets, whatever it is that, an individual's priority is, then how do we support it? And that's people in the business, people returning to work, as was mentioned, around maternity as well, keeping in touch days. And we take kind of active ownership and responsibility as a people manager. If you've got a woman returning from maternity leave, then just really to make sure it's your responsibility to give her the best experience possible coming back into the organisation. I think they'd probably go on for a lot longer, Julie, but some of, I guess, the headlines that we've been working on and focusing on.
Thanks very much, Rebecca. And I think such a long list of really positive actions that you're doing at Auto Trader. And I know that you've been on this journey for quite some time now, and your gender balance is looking very good at the top as a result of this. And it's a lot of it now for you is about sustainment, isn't it? So thanks for sharing those points. So let's move on now to explore some of these issues a little bit further, dig a little deeper. So turning to you first, Paula, what would you say is the biggest challenge for Toyota in terms of getting a better gender balance at the top by promoting and retaining more women? And how are the Toyota staff reacting to the changes that you're making?
Okay, thanks, Julia. So I think if we start with the stats, then our 30 by 30 ambitions, so 30% of our senior management population to be women by 2030, we are currently at just over 20%. So clearly more to be done in terms of the numbers, but what I think is encouraging is what I feel and experience in terms of a clearly evolving mindset and culture. So it's evident that there is a much more even balance to both external applications and promotions. And actually, it was only a few years ago that the senior management team ratio would have been under 15%. Now, one of the key challenges that we have around the speed at which we can create the opportunities is around profile we have of our employees. So we have a high ratio, a high profile of long service employees who are all great, don't get me wrong. And secondly, we are not actively increasing our population. Therefore, for a number of reasons, we have to ensure that we take a slightly different approach to when we do recruit. We have to ensure that we are attracting the best of the population, the best of the talent out there from the widest of pools. We have to ensure that we are nurturing talent and bringing women through from all levels of the business, because a key focus area for us is the movement from manager through to senior management and making sure that we have enough women in the pipeline. Hence, our focus on talent forums and succession and how we can help to accelerate development for people with talent and potential. One of the more overt changes, I guess you could say, is that we've implemented is to improve and participate more actively in promoting the automotive industry to the outside world. So part of this is to be a founding member of the 30% Club and to support various events, but also programs such as Speakers for Schools and encouraging our teams and our retailer network to engage with their local schools and local communities to spread the word about Toyota and automotive. So as I mentioned, attraction is key. And actually, I think we have a joint responsibility here from the people within the motor industry to accelerate changing perceptions of our industry, not just our individual companies. In addition, our business is changing. And as we embrace and harness technology in our products and also in digital and engagement, and as we respond to and anticipate consumer trends, I think we have to recognize that that means we gear up for more changes in our company, and accompanying that, more changes in our skills profile. And therefore, we have to adjust our recruitment approach to reflect our new ways of doing business. So we are continuing to adapt our approach to attraction, recruitment, development, retention, to reflect the emerging requirements in aptitude, skills, and behaviours. So this situation means that we are continually reviewing our employee experience and encouraging engagement. We wanted to be able to measure this clearly and openly with all of our people. And so a few years ago, we joined Best Companies programme and have made great progress. And we're proud to be rated number 15 from last year in the Best Companies list. And we've continued to work with them and also to continue to survey our people throughout the past 12 months or so to seek feedback about how we can improve their conditions, their well-being, and continue to progress with what we want to achieve. So hopefully all of this means that we are reaching out and finding ourselves on the radar of more people, more women, and therefore a wider profile of talent. Picking up on your question about staff reactions, then actually I have to say the feedback has been positive. The response to development opportunities, identifying the potential in people and helping talent to develop has been overwhelmingly positive. The approach is transparent and open, and that has encouraged more women to be a part of it and to recognise and realise their ambitions. So there is a clear path, a clear process, and a very clear and constructive approach to encouraging progress, but also challenging people. So it is a two-way thing. Moreover, I would say that the progress we've made is not exclusive to women. The activities we have undertaken have encouraged more people to engage, absolutely, to join us and realise their ambitions or development, but it is not just for them. So by broadening our appeal, we have seen more women engaged, but we can also see that our men are benefiting and also feel more engaged.
That's great to hear that how positively the workforce have embraced this, but also probably shows that you already had the foundations for an inclusive culture in place to enable them to be so, seizing the opportunity, if you like, to improve their own skills and to see that it's important for business success. So that's really, really good to hear that, Paula. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
So finally, let's move on to Rebecca then. So what specific actions, can I ask, do you think has led to the most impact on improving the number of women being promoted in Auto Trader?
Yeah, sure. I think, first of all, bringing more women into the business at all levels is absolutely a priority, so that we try to address, the problem at source. And build the volume of women that are in our organisation. Quite simply, having more women in the business means more women, by default, will progress. From a recruitment perspective, we're making sure that we're attracting more women into our business by changing some of our recruitment communications, as well as having, more visible women role models. We've looked at our interviewing approaches and who's present in interviews as well, and how we're, supporting and relating to, women applicants. We're very conscious we work across kind of two industries, across tech and automotive, and typically both are, as we know, very male dominated. So we're really trying to counteract, I guess, any stereotypes, that candidates may believe exist. we're making positive progress, as you mentioned earlier, Julia. We're moving in the right direction, but by no means where we want to be. From an early careers perspective, it's really great that now more than 50% of our graduate intakes are women, and that's something that we're really very conscious about. In our tech and developer type roles, they do tend to be more male dominated. But again, we're actively and very proactively seeking out women talent and putting a great deal of effort in to pursue and attract that talent. We've partnered with Tech Returners. That's a program that supports women re-entering, the world of work after having a break, and that can be any kind of break. And 80% of those tech returners were women last year, and they're all doing brilliantly. At Autotrader, mentioned before about tailored personal development programs, really knowing what our women would like and need to help them succeed, are things that we prioritise. And I think there's a real conscious decision to invest in women. You mentioned earlier, Julia, about that classic case where a man typically will apply for a role even if he knows he's not ready for it, and he'll learn the skills when he's in the role, where the woman tends to think, I've not got those one or two things, so I won't apply. We try to almost be over conscious of that and give people opportunities before we know they're ready, and we're quite explicit about that, but that we want to support and champion them in their role and really get behind them. It's things like that I think signify to the broader organisation as well that we're serious about diversity and supporting people across various parts of our business. I think conscious conversations from managers supporting the people, both men and women, are really obviously important. You mentioned about asking people to apply for roles. We do that. It doesn't mean that people are guaranteed to get roles at all. But even asking somebody, have they considered applying for a role? We think you may be ready for it. It signifies and sometimes gives confidence to people that perhaps they wouldn't have done it without that, air of encouragement. And succession planning, we've still got a lot to do here. We really do. And especially, at certain levels within the organisation. But being really clear around where our talent is and how we're going to invest. We do obviously support all Autotrader employees. Those real kind of rising stars that you spot. What are we really doing to support them? So empowering, our women to progress their careers and giving them the confidence and skills, I guess, to do it. And just, from an internal recruitment perspective, as I say, we're moving in the right direction. 60% of it internal vacancies in the last financial year were made to women colleagues. So, yeah, there are lots of things, as always, Julia, that, ladder up to having that positive impact. But they're just, a few of those examples.
Well, they all certainly seem to be working, Rebecca, because your gender balance is very impressive for the sector, and particularly because of the combination of tech and automotive. So I'd just like to move on to yes, yeah. Just to move on to widen the perspective a little from beyond the automotive sector, I'd like to turn to Fiona. So as a consultant to many companies in different sectors, what do you believe to be the actions and other companies that gain the most traction in terms of getting more women of all profiles to progress? And importantly, obviously, to stay in the business. And can you share with us what you think the role of the chief executive is in this?
Good question. I think it's safe to say what I'm seeing across my client base and wider is actually some of the things that both Bex and Paula have mentioned. It's that whole holistic approach. It isn't about just fixing women. It is about enabling women to thrive in their environments. That's what is gaining traction. It's those companies, and again, and we've heard two fantastic, great, real examples. But it's also those companies who are doing that extra. And that extra is all the things that Paul and Bex have said. but linking that back up to the business. So why is doing all of this great stuff benefiting our business? It's making that link back to our consumers. Who's our end customer? Who is, who has purchasing power? How do they buy? They do buy. So again, so it's all of those things, it's really making it real, because the more we have that strong balance, guess what happens? We enable our people to make better decisions, make better products and services that are connecting to our customer base. That's what's getting the most traction, where we put those two things together strongly. The other thing that's gaining traction is we are, in most organizations, we are always very clear that it's inclusion in particular, to really embrace that diversity and of different women, etc., is about enabling or making sure that we are respecting, we are valuing and supporting these women. Equally, what's gaining traction is doing the same thing for the people that make the decisions for women, for all their people. What are we doing to equip them with the capabilities to absolutely make sure that their behaviours, their decisions that they are making are much more inclusive? So I think that investment in things around that behaviours aspect is, I'm seeing, really increasing. I'm hearing more and more around, well, we recognise that whilst we're doing all this great stuff over here, that these women are still operating in a culture, an environment that probably still isn't moving at the same pace that we are doing all this great work over here. So what do we need to do to make sure that the culture and the environment really is strong enough to enable these great, fantastic women, this great talent that we have in our organizations to thrive really, really well? And that has to start with the people that are leading others, the people decision makers, the leaders, the influencers. That's who also sets that culture tone. So that's what I'm seeing also really gaining traction. I think one of the other things for me that I'm seeing, particularly in light of some of the actions and activities of last year, through tragic circumstances, is the more vocalization of crying out for change. People are now more aware, more confident to say this isn't right, whether that's something not being right around discrimination, whether that's around sexual harassment, whether that's around microaggressions, behaviors that people are experiencing in the environment. People are talking up more. To combine with that is something that I have loved seeing with some of my clients, is this really strong, courageous, this key inclusive behavior, this courage to challenge the status quo. That's what I'm seeing more of. That's what's gaining traction. And these are coming from individuals who have, quite honest and open to say, until certain things happened, I never would have said anything. But I'm in an environment where the external environment, what's happening outside, is impacting me, my family, how I raise my children, the decisions that I'm making. I don't want those issues to be there for when my children enter the workplace. So I am now standing up, speaking up, challenging the status quo. And that's what's been really, really good to see. That's really pushing this agenda to this great things that Paula and Bex have talked about, that's moving it from one little circle to a much wider holistic approach that has impact and is felt, heard, and seen right across the whole, right across the whole organisation. You asked a question as well, I think, remind me if I got this wrong, around the CEO's role. So the CEO, I believe, plays a fundamental role. For me, their role is around showing that visible and verbal commitment that is anchored in action. and really demonstrating that commitment with a true belief that this really does matter to not only the business, but to them on a personal level. They genuinely care, and they are very explicit in their narrative that they are talking about gender diversity. They are talking about gender diversity in its widest sense. They are picking up those various nuances. This requires a lot of self awareness and education. But the CEO who can do all those things well, for me, what that does is gives this green light for everybody else to follow, to understand, connect, change, drive action. The more we have our CEOs and even their direct reports, I think it also extends to them as well. It can't just be on the shoulders of the CEO, but they play an important role. But I think the more that we have that commitment seen, felt, and heard and activated from them, and again to Bex's point around CEO for Auto Trader, really epitomizing those things, that's what drives action. Everyone will get on board because they can hear it. It's what he talks about. It's what he's saying. It's what he's doing. It's been backed up with action. It's backed up with, you can see me. I am here. I am talking here. I am doing this here. I'm also enabling others and empowering others to do the same. That's what we need to really accelerate even more. And if I had a wish list, is to enable these great CEOs that are doing this stuff to connect with other CEOs, to enable them to support them, because I think a lot of the time, a lot of CEOs feel, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm saying the wrong thing, the right thing. What if I say something wrong? We can demonstrate and prove that we've got some great CEOs out there that are really driving the change. And you know what? They're still here. They're having a thriving business. It works. Nothing's happened to them. You can't really do anything wrong if it's coming from a good place and it's felt and believed in what we're doing. So yeah, that's what I would say there.
Yeah, really good point about, if you like, collaborating on this. So going boldly, because our CEOs are usually pretty bold in most ways, but going boldly in this space and leading by example, and also, assisting peers to also take those positive steps as well. That's really what the purpose of the Automotive 30% Club is, to enable the network to take place so that leaders can learn from each other. So that's a good summary of the role of the CEO, but also women have a role to play in terms of helping other women. And Paula and Rebecca, as you are both winners of our Inspiring Automotive Woman of the Year award, you've both done a lot to create environments in which women can thrive. So what would you advise other senior women executives in the sector to do to lift other women as they rise? So perhaps I'll turn to you first, Rebecca.
Yeah, I think, and just picking up on what Fiona was saying there, it's a massive bonus and benefit when you're working in a business that has a culture and environment that is supported to all employees, because when you're thinking about lifting as you rise, which we as women would very much want and need to do naturally anyway, but it's almost like it's encouraged, it's supported within your organisation. In fact, it would be frowned upon if we didn't do that within Auto Trader. So the culture is super important, and it has been built over many, many years. So for me personally, I guess in terms of any advice for lifting as you rise, first of all, without doubt, it's constant support for those around you. It really is, and getting to know, the people that you work with, on whatever level they want to engage with you on, be it work related or from a personal perspective. Being observant and recognizing what might really help a woman's confidence, and if you think you can help with that, then in the right way, try and offer some encouragement and support. I think you can never underestimate, if you're in a conversation with somebody, be it, you know, through a mentoring capacity or just a normal conversation, and you sense check that, you know, somebody, you know, might need a little bit of a boost or lift, how brilliant, you know, a few kind supportive words and, you know, genuine authentic interest and support can be for people. I know when I've perhaps been in one of those positions when, you know, you might be feeling a little bit down, or and then you have a conversation with somebody and that just reminds you of how good you are or how what you're doing is moving forwards in the right direction. It can be such a tonic for people. So I would always, you know, encourage people doing that. I think it's hugely important as leaders to be available, accessible, and to interact with other women in the organisation. You know, so as we're all going on our journeys, you know, you're supporting and encouraging and nurturing other people around you to do the same. And I think becoming relatable in whichever role you're in has been a massive kind of positive for me, in so much as people don't see you as somebody that, you know, they can't talk to. You know, you're senior in the organisation, you know, I can't come and have a conversation with you about work or something out of work, you know, some of the community stuff we do. So being accessible and relatable is definitely important. And, you know, you get to share things, we learn from each other. And that, again, is lifting people as we're engaging with each other. You're sharing your experiences and, you know, hopefully offering good advice to others that might help them, you know, from their personal situations or careers. You know, just on that, an example at Auto Trader, we don't have any individual offices. Everybody's out, you know, on the open 3 floors of our Manchester building. And I would love nothing more. I can't do it at the moment because we can't get in the office, but I love to just sit in the middle of the account management teams. Obviously, there's time and place to do that. You can't do it every day, but it's amazing what conversations start, relationships are built, and how connected we really feel as an organisation together. And as I say, they may learn from me, and I definitely learn from them about all different things. So, you know, very much supportive of each other. And I think the last thing I would just say is, you know, absolutely taking ownership for supporting others on their journeys. If you're their manager, you know, then obviously it's your responsibility to support the people in your team. But equally, you may not be a direct line manager, but you can still absolutely reach out and support people. So whether it's people in other parts of your business that are passionate about certain things, then where you can, play in your part to absolutely support and champion them. And back to that, you know, allowing hopefully everybody, you know, to feel like they can be their true self at work. I'll stop there, Julie.
Thanks, Rebecca. So actually we are out of time, I'm afraid now, but we've had some fabulous advice from 3 really inspiring women. So thanks so much to Fiona, Paula and Rebecca for sharing your valuable expertise with us. And that brings us to the end of this 3rd and final masterclass. Fiona, Paula and Rebecca will be staying on to participate in the next session, where you can put questions to them and our other panel members. So please do submit your questions now. And so let's take a short break now and then meet again for the final session of the conference.